Wow, look at that suit. I don't think I've worn a suit in about a year now. Hello, everybody. My name is Joris. I'm partner at IC. And about a year ago, I got the chance to speak at the IIeX in Amsterdam. Why don't we take it just back to that time and see what has changed?
So what's the knowledge curse? It's a cognitive bias that makes us susceptible to assumptions about the knowledge of our interlocutor, so the one that we talk to, and effectively their ability to understand what we're talking about. What does that mean? If I know something, I assume that you actually also know it.
Yeah, it's interesting to raise that main concern, and that was that there is this asymmetrical knowledge between the people talking. So we have, on the one hand, the researcher and the consumer, right? We have the researcher and their internal stakeholders, and then we have the researcher and their agency. I was effectively trying to make a point that our previous knowledge is coming into play when we make a decision, and that it might be even more potent than we are aware. Now, a year has passed, and with the impact of the pandemic, we are pretty much sure that there are many things that are unseen or unprecedented at times. So, by definition, we need to learn about that. And what is a better way than doing some research to build some new understanding? The million-dollar question remains, how do we bypass that knowledge course? And funny enough, uh, before COVID, but also especially after COVID, the answer remains the same. It's research. And in the early weeks of COVID, our IC founder, my partner Oliver, generated a scenario testing approach where we explore multiple possibilities of doing research. And that has been a blueprint for many of our clients in these uncertain times.
How do we do shopper research today? We ask questions, we try to figure out what the decision tree is, but in reality, actually, consumers are overloaded with 50,000 SKUs. They decide, 5 seconds per aisle, and they have 50% of the decisions which is made on the spot. So does it then make sense to actually do those batches of surveys all the time?
Oh, well, I was talking at that time about, a prominent switch from traditional in-person lab-based type of studies to a more kind of online behavioral approach. And obviously, due to the crisis, the pandemic, many things in our field of research have been accelerated. Even more traditional clients have now shifted from lab-based traditional research because they had to because of health concerns towards an online approach. And at the same time, you see that also competitors are changing their approach to become more online driven, to work with virtual stores, to focus on e-commerce. And all of that happened in a very fast manner.
If we look at the real supermarket environment, it kind of looks like that. We're going around, we have our children with us, we have our partner, we're talking, there's music going around.
If we look now at the environment, we are wearing a mask, we keep distance, we go shopping by just ourselves instead of with a family. And even depending on the moment that we're describing of the last year, we were even looking for an extra toilet roll. Yeah, joking aside, there has been this big transformation of shopping, and the experience has changed tremendously. On the retailer side, their distribution changed, their planograms have changed, the way that they merchandise has changed. So all of that is shifting into the behavior that we see. In order to determine the optimal shelf reset, our team at IC conducted an extensive behavioral shopping study to identify the outcome of adopting the different approaches. The study tested planograms in the coffee, cereal, chocolate, and yogurt categories to uncover insights for our clients' most pressing issues. We interviewed about 1,200 respondents who shopped 4 categories via a virtual store. What we found out is that the shelf is a zero-sum game in terms of space, but not in terms of efficiency. Depending on the objectives, some solutions are clear winners for all parties involved: the shoppers, the manufacturers, and obviously the retailers. In short, there are new opportunities on the horizon for the challenger brands, but also there are new rules and challenges for the leading brands within the category captains, so to speak.
And what do we do in terms of conducting research? Well, we ask questions, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes questions. If we're a bit more advanced, we might use a 2D shelf to have some level of contextualization, important words, and we see the competition, for example. Or we use a 3D store, or if we're really fancy-smancy, we're actually working with VR headset.
Well, first of all, today you would not be able to do an in-person testing of any kind entirely safely. So scratch focus groups, scratch non-online survey methods, scratch central location high-tech testing like 3D glasses and whatnot. However, the rise of new tools, better algorithms, and overall more sophisticated approach to the new market research tech has been really marked in 2020. There are new competitors entering the playing field. Lots of startups in the MRX space. But for us, of course, technology has always been at the core of what we do, doing things smarter. This trend effectively has been always what we have been banking on. The new features of our virtual store have been a direct answer to questions that we received from clients during the pandemic.
Shopper is all about space. What's the currency in digital? It's time. Especially if you scroll to a Twitter timeline, it goes so fast, so quick. So we need to see how we can actually monetize that time component and how we can actually generate a context that makes us able to measure and to do proper kind of research in this digital crazy world.
We recently worked with our partners at Twitter to understand better how advertising is impacted by an environment full of divisive and controversial topics. Especially, we wanted to understand what is the impact on brand performance and purchase intent. This was a really big study with over 10,000 respondents conducted in a replicated Twitter feed environment. So this means a fully realistic testing experience for the respondents, using behavioral and conventional methods, of course. What we can say for sure is that this study brings good news for advertisers. These are the main findings. Favorability and consideration are not significantly affected by the content of the tweets that are surrounded by your ads. That means that even in the most controversial times, it is safe to advertise on Twitter. One of the most important learnings is that even in those most divisive, controversial times, people on Twitter want to hear from their brands, and that brands can use that momentum, can use their voice in support of certain key issues.
For social media, there are two possibilities. Either we're making a mock-up of a persona, we make their timeline, and we inject the ad into that mock-up. Alternatively, we have Joris, his Facebook, and we inject the ad inside. Sounds more advanced, but if we look at some data from our internal studies, it seems that an ad in a mock-up is actually explored longer, whereas in a injected respondent's feed, there's some more kind of scrolling in terms of speed, higher visibility of the ad, but overall, the insights are converting.
There are two sides of the spectrum. You got those that love technology and innovation, and then you got those who are kind of skeptical to new things on the block. I believe that ad injection versus simulated feed is a perfect example. And the latter can be an optimal use of technology because not everything that is shiny is per se the best. I do know that it's not always easy to decide on what to invest in and what not. In any case, simulated feeds have been working this year very well. We tackled topics like gender issues, racial discrimination, we focused on Black Lives Matters, we focused on COVID, and I believe that the level of insights that was generated would never have been possible by just running a regular survey. Talking about relevant topics and communicating that the brand stands against discrimination and racism, and that the brand contributes to the cause in a specific way. Showing a variety of ethnic backgrounds and a cultural diversity works. We also saw that the brand purchase is driven more strongly if the respondents and the protagonists of the ad are of the same ethnic background. On the other hand, what causes negative emotions is unclear messaging, especially when it is unrelated to the image.
A couple of recommendations after having done a set of studies on contextualization. First of all, we cannot assume anything. So also as researchers, we're highly biased. So think about how we can use a contextualization, how we can learn about the behavior of a consumer, and to conduct better research. Secondly, it might be very smancy-pancy to do VR or very advanced kind of techie work. But does it generate the right insights? Can it be agile enough? Can it be scalable enough? Thirdly, if we look at digital world, and especially the example that I gave on advertising on a product listing page on e-commerce, for example, do we have some level of advancedness in our toolkit today? For brick and mortar, we very much know what we do. But how about digital? And last one short is if we look at winning ads, obviously, that contextualization is very important, but also we need to be able to make that bridge with the content as such.
All of these remarks still hold ground, but I would like to add that in these change-packed times, there are new opportunities that are arising. We saw behavioral research really penetrating industries beyond, finally, FMCG. For instance, we noticed that in healthcare, there was a lot of awareness and activity. For example, companies like Bayer are using behavioral methods to drive their decisions. My addition to last year would be that, translating mechanisms, best practices, and approaches from different industries to your situation, that really makes a strong competitive strategy. Oh my God, if you see how close we're standing to the stage, it's almost anxiety inducing. Only 1 month after, the pandemic completely started taking off and changed our lives tremendously. Well, I hope that next year we can share the stage again in Amsterdam, and I'm very much looking forward to going to conversation with you guys again. Bye.